Hello, everybody. Today, during our last final debate, we'll try to find an answer, will the digital revolution save the economy? Welcome on the stage Riccardo Genghini, Sławomir Górniak, Marcin Szulga, on site Karol Okoński, and Mariusz Włodarczyk. Welcome, gentlemen. Pandemic crisis changed our life, our business life, our social relations, and in a very short period of time, we realized that 5G, IoT, blockchain, AI, it's not only a dream, but absolutely real life. And I would like to try to find the answer. What will be the future? How this revolution in our business and social life will change our business for a very long time for the future, and how Polish European companies' economy will be able to win this revolution for the future. I have a lot of questions to you, gentlemen, so let's start. I will start with question to Riccardo. Hello, Riccardo.
Hi.
The pandemic has accelerated digital development. Broadly understood, business had to find its way quickly into the new reality in order to maintain continuity of operation. What do you think? Are the solutions they are implementing temporary substitute, or will they stay with us for a longer time?
Well, it is pretty obvious that we are having changes that will not all pass away. People are understanding that it is not necessary commute every day. Some things can be done very well also in video conference. Like this conference, I don't have the pleasure to be again in Poland and to meet you in person, but for exchanging information, you did a very good job, and it was possible to follow very well all the presentations. So I think these are changes that will stay, and for these changes, secure, privacy compliant digital identities are essential. I also believe that they can be part of the trusted services. They don't need to be under national supervision, and in that way probably it will be made a new level of security and of interaction, and also a more common legal infrastructure for electronic IDs. The president of the Commission was very clear. It is one of the three pillars of the evolution of Europe.
Thank you very much. But Karol, maybe I will ask you, in your opinion, which sectors of economy have most benefited from this pandemic in terms of speeding up digitalization? What do you think? Who will win in this time?
Well, I think the important thing to say is it's actually the distinction. I think that we were able actually to see was more actually within the sectors and between the top players and the rest, I think, because it was become just evident that the ones who actually started their digital transformations well, some time ago, and could do it in a planned manner, were actually the ones that when actually the occasion was to revamp their business and actually to change completely the way they operate, could just from day one, like reroute, for example, their clients to digital channels, or let their employees stay at home, because they just basically had already in place some all the possible solutions to provide the remote access. But also they're both employees and clients also knew that there is also this other way, remote way of doing business or working for this company. And I think, and the ones who had to do this in a very, fast track way, definitely were not able to do it like properly because they just had to decide like what we should concentrate on. Definitely concentrate on just continuing the business in a way that allowed them to do the minimum what was possible to allow it just to continue doing it at some minimal level. And then the ones that did it in that way, not in this very fast way, of course, were also the one. I mean, they could also be culprit to some potential, of course, attacks and other adversarial activities, because the criminals, the cyber criminals, basically knew it that in such a situation where there is a lot of emotions, a lot of change, people don't have already some habits in place because they basically, were doing, for example, we're working for the first time from home, or the clients were for the first time, get to know that they can just communicate with a given client through different channel. That was of course, although all the branches that actually started and the whole e-commerce space that flourished over this was at the same time the ones that were actually at the highest potential risk of being exploited, because basically the cyber criminals just want to take advantage of something new happening, of people doing something for the first time, of the fact that the IT help desk maybe had some reduced staff or were not possible to dedicate too much time to their employees. So it all created like this kind of very difficult situations. And I think what was also important is that, the ones that had those, struggled with this changing the way they operate, they just had to concentrate basically on continuing their operations. And all the others, the top players in that way, could actually also not only do what they did until now, but actually could try to figure out what will be the new products, new ways, new innovative solutions that they can employ in the situation. Because the competition for some of them, basically, for some limited period of time, but still, were just much less than usual, because their competitors just had to concentrate on like daily business, and the others could do some and could play with some new features. So in this way, I think. Because the digitalization is all over the place, I would not really distinguish any single industry, but I think definitely the whole situation of the pandemic definitely created some winning players in the respective industries.
Thanks. One more question to you, because of course this crisis, this new situation in our economy created a lot of new products, new services from a lot of companies around the world. What do you think? Is it possible to find some way to increase competitiveness of Polish companies on the European market, or maybe global market, in this new situation, new reality?
Well, I think knowing that mostly when you build a new products, you basically don't start from scratch, but you basically build it out of some ready components, open source components usually. I mean, definitely the advantage of Polish companies is just knowledge of this local market, of the needs, maybe also like like close cooperation that they might have with some other either clients or business partners. So definitely if they are unable to find either some niche or provide products at some competitive price, the fact that at this point there are much more companies actually willing and looking for this kind of services might create the need to just to enter for some new entries. But at the same time, what they have to make sure is that it's not that they deliver something new in their product. They have to make sure that they maintain the right quality and time of the service, because the post-sales service, I think, is something that will actually can create then the real need and the real the connection with the company. If someone decides to buy something new, to experiment, but in the end will not be satisfied, will you change to something that already, it's already on the market for some time. So definitely some potential. And the last thing, just to make sure that I don't omit it, is like you mentioned that the industry sectors. I think definitely one of the sectors that did benefit overall from the pandemic. So there are some likely some positive things from this. Is of course also the public sector, because it eventually, I mean, the whole situation made it possible finally to destroy some of the barriers that were there for some long time.
Thanks. Mariusz, let's talk about company sector. In your opinion, how did the digital and modern technology sector find itself during the pandemic? Were there any difficulties in this new reality for your sector? Or was it normal, and for you there was nothing strange in this new reality?
The answer is, let's say, very broad, and so we can talk and this half hour is not enough. But it's a good point you mentioned that let's say in some way the whole world is not only about IT people and not only about lawyers, but about SMEs and about consumers, and they really need our help during this pandemic, especially when it started in March, April. So that was really very important. So what happened? Because we have our mobiles, our laptops, all this stuff already for 20 years, but in March, April, we just realized that we can use it to contact, to do business. That's the first. The second is that let's say it's normal, but we were, as a society, as a company with our customers, we're united. We're united in the aim, that we want to do something, yes? So let's say what we did. We said, okay, you can have an annex amendment to contract, but you have to register on a special electronic platform. As a Santander Leasing, we create such a platform, not only us, many companies. So before, many customers, months, years, they didn't do that. But in March, we said, no amendments, only via electronic platform. They did it. Yeah, so that was the first. So we can see that this digital solution really helped in that area. I will just give you an example. In 2019, we did something like 9,000 annexes, 9,000 amendments to our contracts. In March, April, half May, we did 22,000. So without this solution, this digital solution, that wouldn't be possible. So that's very important, because we are talking about this EID, we are talking about the e-signature, but it's important that it's business and it's created for business. So what we did during this time, during this special month, that we used these tools we had before, we have right now, but we use these tools all to do and to, I don't know, to help each other, to help customer to keep their cash flow and things like that. So that was very, very important. But I will really just put pressure on situation that all these tools are very important, but also very important is that we want to use these tools as a people, yeah, because we had to, because we couldn't meet each other, so we had to, yeah. So that's very important what we did. So we put into practice what we did for many time, for many months, but not, let's say, in everyday life. The second is very important, or the next is that we trusted, during this time, we trusted in these tools, because usually, look, we don't think if I buy a ticket, if I buy, I don't know, vacation and so on, I do pay with SMS in my electronic bank account, and that's fine. But if I'm thinking about, can I sign an agreement? Can I put an SMS and confirm, and I am obliged, and it's my agreement? So I'm still thinking, no, maybe I will just sign it. But in March, April, May, even later, it occurred that it's not possible many times. So I had to agree on this type of doing business, conversation, things like that. So that you've asked just before if it's gonna stay with us. We did, as a companies, we did a lot on IT, on legal, on, I don't know, leasing, banks, different sectors. So we did a lot, and I think that many of the solutions really stay with us, because I would just say that it will not replace contact, and it's really good that I can see you today, but it's important that it can help, especially when we need this help.
Thanks. You mentioned about customers, so maybe let's stay in this issue. Sławku, in this pandemic time, consumers had to change their behavior in different ways. What do you think? How did this change go, these behaviors of consumers? Were consumers mentally and instrumentally ready for this revolution in technology? Did it increase confidence in new technology?
Well, from my point of view, well, as you know, well, my agency is not really, let's say, industry oriented. But from what I can add to what has been discussed already is that, for example, my agency and, well, in general, agencies of European Union were for a long time prepared already to let's say, to work remotely. Not only work remotely, but also, well, discuss, conduct meetings, and so on. I think that most businesses that did not need like direct contact with a person managed very well the situation, and I think that this really created a kind of confidence in us that things can be done online and can be done remotely. So, for example, well, maybe a strange example, but well, the premises of my agency were under reconstruction for a couple of years ago, and this was already a couple of years ago, meaning 3 or 4. And then basically our work program did not suffer because of this. So basically all our deliverables were still managed very well, and everything went like it should. So I think that one of the positive things, I mean, if we of course can speak about positive things about COVID, is this confidence in online tools, that they really work. And with the further evolvement and developments in the area of electronic identities, for example, and well, remote identification, e-identification in general, I think that this well, new world can be created on the basis of what we learned now. Of course, there are human behaviors that play a role here as well. So, for example, when we meet on, well, in real life, the discussion is often different than if we speak like that on the well, through electronic means. Also, just meeting people is different. So, for example, if we have already a certain level of confidence in our relations, we can discuss sensitive issues online easily, while it's much more difficult when you launch a contact with someone. So here I think that, well, although these digital worlds seem to work, and that we passed the examination, let's say, when it comes to online services, still there are some unresolved issues, like, for example, these real life meetings with people that you see for the first time, and you try to establish trust and confidence.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that all of us agree that we have today around our businesses, our life revolution. And usually if we had to implement new solutions in a very short period of time, we could have some problems with implementations of these new solutions. So, Marcin, as far as new technology are concerned, there have been many discussions on paperless, 5G, IoT, blockchain, many different others solutions. what is and will be the real impact of these solutions on the global economy, in your opinion? Do these technologies overlap with each other? Do they support each other? Or maybe what is their impact on trust services? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a hard question because we are predicting the future.
Only hard questions.
Yeah. But of course, we are willing those technologies will have a great impact on the business, on the new processes on the global economy and so on. So the 5G technologies are being, very commonly discussed, and we are also thinking about them in relation to the trust services, because there are some technical concepts of identification, which was mentioned during the presentation by the guys from Samsung, and this digital identification supported by mobile devices is becoming very, attractive for trust service providers. And the adoption of mobile technologies bring us a new light to the problem of general adoption of trust services. We are struggling with the adoption of trust services in EU and globally as well. So using well-known technologies like mobile technologies, we can push this our trust services to the market. Yeah. The next thing about the IoT, we are discussing what will be the impact of IoT to the global economy. We've been talking about the robotization, automation of the processes, artificial intelligence, and so on. Yeah. But according to trust services, we are concerned about some legal aspects of IoT. I mean, we are talking about the identity of the natural person. We are talking about the identity of the legal person. But what about the things, about the robots, about the automated solutions? Yeah. So there is a huge discussion about the identity of the things. Yeah, or the representatives, technical representatives of the physical person. Yeah. So in general, those technologies will have a great impact on the economy, but they should be somehow supported, let's say, by the trust services to bring the trust anchor to the business processes. Yeah. So, but we also think that we will benefit from those technologies. For example, from blockchain, we are talking about the privacy by design, some distributed architecture patterns, which are, let's say, very attractive from the point of view of global scale economy. Yeah? And when we are talking about the centralized solutions like PKI-based solutions, yeah, they are hard to scale up in some cases. So taking a look at the blockchain technologies, it was said before by Marta and Miłosz during the fire chat, yeah, that they are not regulated. They are not regulated on a legal level. So probably we may push or support those blockchain technologies with the legal value using trust services. The electronic signature is the basic service, and it's used by the blockchain technology. So if we deliver qualified electronic signature to the blockchain technology to sign, for example, smart contracts with qualified signatures, it may bring the legal value to the business processes, automated business processes supported by the blockchain. So the blockchain may be the second layer of the basic trust services delivered under ADAS regulation. Yeah? And we've got a lot of synergies between those new technologies. They are bringing us some value, I mean us, trust service providers. And we are also having great offer for those technologies to support them, to support the trust in the global scale economy. Yeah.
Thanks. Riccardo, we have very good, sometimes revolutionary solutions in business, even during this hard time, high crisis time. But we have very good customers ready for this revolution in technology. But Riccardo, what do you think about European legislation, because it's necessary for business to have good legislation. What do you think European legislation, are European legislation keeping up with the digital revolution? Are European legislation ready for this revolution? Excuse me, you have to unmute your microphone, Riccardo.
Yes, sorry.
Perfect.
To be completely candid, I have been involved in the legislation of the electronic signature since the beginning. And so I'm partially speaking about my own work, and I just want to be very candid and open about that. What I read in international newspapers, in particular The Economist, is that European legislation with GDPR and the EIDAS regulation is setting the tone globally. So this is a judgment coming from a newspaper that normally is not so kind with European legislation, considering it at times too extensive and too bureaucratic. So we have this very important endorsement, and we have, even in the United States, some states like California, they are copying the European approach. We have several states of Asia and South America that are contacting the European Commission for being mutually recognized and for adopting legislation that is compliant and similar to EIDAS. So these are the bright sides that show that we are moving in a good direction and that we have achieved something. If I should also say something about the missed opportunities, I would say that mainly the missed opportunities are related to too many different supervision schemes at national level that have made very difficult a single market. The interpretation of the EIDAS regulation in different member states can be extremely diverse, and this is also not good. And I would say also that it is understandable that the first try with the electronic identity was national with the nodes and the current solution, but we are seeing already that it is too complex to be really useful at European level. But also we have to be mindful that for data protection reasons, it is really essential, as the President of the Commission has said in her speech on the State of the Union, it is essential that we have a technically sound and transparent digital identity for the European citizen in order to protect our institutions and our civil rights. So all this considered, I would say we have achieved something, and we have still important things to do at legislative level.
Thank you very much. Mariusz, we all unfortunately agree that in our life, in business life, we have some legislative barriers. What do you think? Can you imagine the world without these legislative barriers? Probably not. But if, what do you think? What we should do? How to do it? Create this world without these legislative barriers, especially if you could focus on Polish situation, for example, in verification of the identity of person signing some documents. So what do you think? Is it possible to create the world Polish market, European market, without these legislative barriers?
Look, I'm optimistic, so I think that is possible. Yeah, so that's the answer, but it's difficult. And maybe just a few examples. Yeah. So the first example is that we have tomorrow we have October. Pandemic started in March or in February. So if customer send me and complain, and so I have to give him answer on a hard copy sign. Yes. So that's one of the let's say example that we still are very deep into this, let's say, manual world. And there are many situations like this. I am from leasing, let's say, leasing industry, and our contract has to be signed on paper with qualified signature, but mostly by hand, because otherwise it's not valid anymore. So we still have a lot of situations like this that need to be improved very much. So that's the first. The second is that, look, even we have a lot of this anti-COVID or these shields which were adopted by our parliament in this month, and still they say that these regulations are for pandemic and part of them 3 months after. So what will happen then? Because we did a lot from this technological point of view, and if pandemic stopped today, from the 1st of January next year, we are still in legal world from the pandemic, but from the technological point of view, we are far away. So that's the first. The second is that I think that we have a lot of there is a lot of misunderstanding, and we are the people who are dealing with this for many years already. We are, even we, I feel sometimes, let's say, really lost in this. We have few signatures because it's qualified, certified, profil zaufany, personal signature, and so on, SMS signature, and so on. But look for the typical consumer or SME business. He doesn't know what's good, what's wrong. Yeah, he just wants to have a contract. So first we have to clarify this situation, to have one interpretation or one simple and single information what it means. The second is that we have a different, for example, this durable medium, this persistent medium. So we have at least 3 or 4 definitions in different situations, in different acts. We have, I don't know, banks law is different than other law. So I am optimistic about that, but we should stop for a moment and we should think how we can improve this situation, that this is very, let's say, obvious. It's something which we as a people understand, and it's not only for this special group of people who are dealing with it day by day. So that's the second. The next is that we did a lot from the technological point of view, also a lot from the legal point of view, but again, it's too difficult. It's too difficult. So no one really understands what we are talking about, what we are doing, and so on. I know when you try to understand the legal document, it's really more and more difficult. There is a special plan, a special project, for example, in financial banking sector, in leasing sector, that we will try to write our contracts in a very simple language. Okay, and we need it also in this area. So we should think about how to give this information to be really simple for people who are using this, because we should remember that we can earn money only if people who use this understand it. Yeah. So, but I am optimistic. It's a long way. It's quite difficult. But again, what we did in March, April, when we are united about our common aim, we did. So we will do also this one, but in next, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years.
Thanks. Karol, because of your experience in public sector, public administration, I am afraid that you agreed that it's impossible to remove all legislative barriers in our business life. So I will ask you from the other hand, if we have to have barriers in legislation, so how can we raise awareness and fight against the cult of paper in Poland, for example, because in Poland, generally in CE region, we have this cult of paper very strong. Or
Yes.
maybe, in your opinion, easier will be remove all legislative barriers.
Yes, it's a cult of paper. I think cult of also the stamp that has to be stamped on this paper. Yes, I think it's like like what I mentioned, the situation that was created by pandemic. Actually was one. I know of one, at least one of the ministries where actually only this catastrophic situation to some extent actually was the only thing that actually allowed to introduce the electronic document management system, because otherwise it was not possible until then. So there might be some definitely some, the urgent need or the need itself is one thing. For the perspective then of the citizens, again, something that actually attracted people to use or to gain the already mentioned trusted profile was actually the fact that there was some electronic service that was actually valuable to them. So the ease, of course, of gaining it is the first place, but the second one will be the fact that there was some business application underneath that actually makes the people use it. So in terms of setting the law, definitely the key would be to not to describe in detail, what is possible or not. Try to look for in terms of like big legislations for example, for cybersecurity field, for privacy. You try to look for the decisions that will be anchored in some risk-based analysis in the end that will actually allow for each individual entity to assess it on their own, take the responsibility for this, but at the same time adapt to the situation and the circumstances and technologies that is possible at given time, which also means you would not have to, let's say, renew this legal act over and over again when the technology develops. And at the same time, I think there might be some legal acts that are actually the trigger for some new services, some new possibilities. And I think one of the the legal act that has some untapped potential, I would say, is still the EIDAS directive. I mean, the fact that it creates the whole mechanism of actually building the e-services around identity, but at the same time coupled with digital services providers, but also something that is called in directive the attributes providers. I mean, so in the end, you might create the whole ecosystem that make it possible to create the new e-services much faster, much more effectively. And the legal acts basically should create more like a framework that would allow to do something faster and would not be limited but by some decisions of certain ministries, but more would give the, let's say, the inspiration and the field for the ones who are more creative and just like to use and use those building blocks to create something something that's of real value to the citizen and to the customer.
Great, thank you very much. Maybe I will ask Marcin about one more thing, because this revolution during pandemic time created quite few new possibilities for European companies on global market. What do you think? Is it possible to build in Europe companies which will be able, even on the European market where we have absolutely over-regulated market, is it possible to find a way to build companies which will be absolutely ready and find some chance in relations with global big players from USA or China? Is it this time? Is it a good time for find some way, maybe some help for European companies to start this global fight for market?
Yeah, that's a hard question, but I think that we are already ready, and we are ready to compete on the global markets from the technological point of view for sure. But we need some, good environment like it was said, legal environment or marketing environment, or some supporting tools to develop quickly, because we are talking about the time to market principle, and when it comes to delivering trust services, we are talking every time about the security level of assurance and those very important things. But comparing our, let's say, services with the services provided by the US players or Chinese players, we should think about how to create an ecosystem to deliver services quickly on the market to address particular needs of the customers. So that we need to create a very efficient legal framework, maybe abstract, like Karol said. We need to create very efficient standardization processes. If we are willing to standardize, in some cases we are willing to do so, we need to create a very effective supervision processes. And at the end of the day, we should deliver quicker to the market, address the needs of the customers. From the technical point of view, I'm very sure that we are already, and simple, of course.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is gone. I was afraid that our debate should take much more time. But I'm sure that during this debate, all of us and our guests on the other hand, our side of internet, are sure that digital technology will save economy in this hard time, and after this crisis, we'll be sure that using new technologies are safe and necessary for keeping our business, our social life, our culture, our administration active. Thank you very much for this discussion.